Welcome to the Steve Barkley Ponders Out Loud podcast. As instructional coaches and school leaders, you have a challenge to guide continuous teacher growth that promotes student success. This podcast looks to support you with strategies from our experienced guests and insights that I've gathered across many years. I'm thrilled you're here. Thanks for listening. Expectations as a Foundation for Coaching, Part 2. What follows is a presentation and conversation that was recorded at Nicole Turner's Coaching Summit 2023. In Part 1, found in the previous podcast, Nicole and I explored continuous teacher growth, teaching as a team sport, and planning backwards. In Part 2, we'll look at the early examination of why teachers deserve coaches. We'll also address the principal-coach partnership, and we'll close out with a look at building coachability among a staff and the need to overcome the fear of finding out. I hope you enjoy. So why is this so hard? Well, I'm going to give you the history to the earliest part of my my coaching career. This first article from Bruce Joyce and Beverly Showers appeared in 1982, and it really caught my attention. They interviewed college football coaches, and they compared college football coaches' interviews with the interviews of staff developers in school, and I love this quote that I've placed on here for you. Athletes do not believe that mastery will be achieved quickly or easily. As teachers, we've often behaved as though teaching skills were easily acquired, and the degree to which we allow that to continue, we've probably misled teachers. Mm-hmm. To me, that's a critical part, that teachers know that as coaches, I understand that. So I want to jump it from there to a more up-to-date one here with Atul Gawande, who's a heart surgeon, and he makes this connection in his work to coaching.
Now, the contrasting view comes out of sports. And they say, you are never done. Everybody needs a coach. Everyone. The greatest in the world needs a coach. So I tried to think about this as a surgeon. Pay someone to come into my operating room, observe me, and critique me. It seems absurd. Expertise means not needing to be coached. So then which view is right? I learned that coaching came into sports as a very American idea. In 1875, Harvard and Yale played one of the very first American rules football games. Yale hired a head coach. Harvard did not. The results? Over the next 3 decades, Harvard won just 4 times. Harvard hired a coach. And it became the way that sports works. But is it necessary then? Does it transfer into other fields? I decided to ask, of all people, Itzhak Perlman. He had trained the Dorothy DeLay way and became arguably the greatest violinist of his generation. One of the beautiful things about getting to write for the New Yorker is I call people up and they return my phone calls. And Perlman returned my phone calls. So we ended up having an almost 2-hour conversation about how he got to where he got in his career. And I asked him, I said, why don't violinists have coaches? And he said, I don't know, but I always had a coach. You always had a coach? Oh yeah. My wife, Toby, they had graduated together from Juilliard, and she had given up her job as a concert violinist to be his coach, sitting in the audience, observing him and giving him feedback. Itzhak, in that middle section, you sounded a little bit mechanical. What can you do differently next time? It was crucial to everything he became, he said. Turns out there are numerous problems in making it on your own. You don't recognize the issues that are standing in your way, or if you do, you don't necessarily know how to fix them. And the result is that somewhere along the way, you stop improving. And I thought about that, and I realized that was exactly what had happened to me as a surgeon. I'd entered practice in 2003, and for the first several years, it was just this steady upward improvement in my learning curve. I watched my complication rates drop from one year to the next, and after about 5 years, they leveled out. And a few more years after that, I realized I wasn't getting any better anymore. And I thought, is this as good as I'm going to get? So I thought a little more, and I said, okay, I'll try a coach. So I asked a former professor of mine who had retired, his name is Bob Osteen, and he agreed to come to my operating room and observe me. The case, I remember that first case, it went beautifully. I didn't think there would be anything much he'd have to say when we were done. Instead, he had a whole page of dense with notes. Just small things, he said, but it's the small things that matter. Did you notice that the light had swung out of the wound during the case? He spent about half an hour just operating off the light from reflected surfaces. Another thing I noticed, he said, your elbow goes up in the air every once in a while. That means you're not in full control. A surgeon's elbow should be down at their sides, resting comfortably. So that means if you feel your elbow going in the air, you should get a different instrument or just move your feet. It was a whole nother level of awareness. And I had to think, there was something fundamentally profound about this. He was describing what great coaches do. And what they do is they are your external eyes and ears, providing a more accurate picture of your reality. They're recognizing the fundamentals. They're breaking your actions down and then helping you build them back up again. After 2 months of coaching, I felt myself getting better again. And after a year, I saw my complications drop down even further. It was painful. I didn't like being observed. And at times I didn't want to have to work on things. I also felt there were periods where I would get worse before I got better. But it made me realize that the coaches were onto something profoundly important.
Any response on that, Nicole?
I
enjoyed watching you watch it.
So, no response, but that, as I was thinking, I'm saying, here's my response. As I was thinking about this would be an amazing opening for introducing your role as a coach.
Yeah.
This would be an amazing opening. It will just plant that seed. Kind of when we do our lesson plans and when we work with teachers, you have to get that, what is it? Why am I going blank this morning? It's the grabber, right? The attention grabber, the first thing that we do in a lesson plan. This right here is what I would share, at a new building. Like, I absolutely would love that. I would share that at a new building and then go in to talk about how I can help you, what it is that I could do, all of those things.
So it's available on YouTube.
Yes.
Easy to access for folks.
Absolutely love it. And I'm going to go watch the entire thing probably today.
So I wanted to go back. So what you just saw him talk about there is down the bottom of the my diagram again here. So take Joyce and Showers saying that the athletes knew that it's a major investment to get a small improvement. Atul Gawande's comments that as a surgeon after 7 years wanting to get better required that coaching. It really says how important the bottom of my diagram here is to support teachers. And when Joellen Killian wrote about this in her famous article on light coaching and heavy coaching, I just want you to catch the words there that I put in red from her quote. Heavy coaching means robustly engaging in the work of coaching with a laser-like focus on improving student learning.
Yeah.
That's the thing the coach is constantly putting on the plate back in front of the teacher. And for a teacher, if you when you listen to him say it didn't feel good, it didn't feel good to make just last week. I'm working with a teacher. She's the head of the phys ed department, and so she wanted to model coaching for her department so that she could get them started coaching each other. So I did a pre-conference with her that we recorded over Zoom. She recorded a little piece of her lesson, and then we on a video, and then we did the post-conference live in front of her staff. And when she's watching herself on video, it was a badminton class. And she had made a big deal with the kids that whenever they left the court, they had to walk around the outside, because if they cut across the court, they might get whacked by a racket. So she's watching the video and she catches herself 3 times walking through the middle of the court, doing exactly what she had just made a big deal with the kids on what it was that they shouldn't do, and the power of her vulnerability with her department was powerful in seeing that happen. Take it another step then. In order to have that focus on student achievement that Joellen talks about, the principal and coach expectations, the principal and coach partnership becomes really important. And here's a piece that Jim Knight wrote back in 2009. Coaches must understand fully what the principal's vision is for school improvement, and the principal needs to understand fully the interventions that the coaches have to offer teachers. So my simplistic version of this, it's the job of the coach to make the principal look good. It's the job of the principal to make the coach look good.
Yes.
And the teachers are going to benefit from that. And really, the kids are going to benefit from that. Everybody seeing that we're on the same page, moving in the same direction, becomes critical. So
you just took that out of my head, because this is one thing I always say. I have a picture when I do a keynote. This one particular presentation that I work with principals on, and in that I have the picture of a boat, and it's all of us, and they're rowing. Right. And so it's always like Bingo. One person can't be rowing in the opposite direction, but the leader is also rowing and guiding. If you notice that the person they're the leader, they're rowing and they're guiding at the same time. And I always say that that's the principal's role, right? But the coach is that one little person right there, that's right there, and they're rowing just along with them. So everybody has to be rowing in the same direction. Yeah. Love that.
So every summer I repost a blog with some modifications on what I call the summer conversation for the coach and principal to have. And I just put one sample one up here. But if you go to my website and you just look for summer conversations, you'll find these. And I made up a set of questions for all the different scenarios. So I got a set of questions for if you're the coach and you got a new principal. I got a set for if the principal's been there a while, but you're the new coach. Maybe you were both there last year. That's what this set is. Then there's another set if you're both new. But I think the summer is a great time to knock out an hour and a half of going to lunch together or over coffee and beginning that conversation of getting on the same page.
Yes.
So if I'm okay, time wise here, Nicole, I got just one last one that's a new one for me. I'll plow through here for folks. I was just recently introduced to the concept of fear of finding out, and the short term for that is FOFO. And
FOFO. We go call it FOFO.
And a colleague sent me a piece on it and just said, "Hey, Steve, I think you'd find this interesting." And the very same day that I got the piece, I was working with two instructional coaches who were struggling with teachers not investing in the data review conversations that they were having. And I thought, wow, could it be this fear of finding out? So the term fear of finding out originally came from the medical field. And so it's the person who's got the ache and pain. They know something's wrong, but they're not going to go to the doctor out of fear of finding out what it is that the doctor's going to point out. So I started thinking about, am I going to a PLC meeting looking at student work, but not really sure I want to find out. I don't want to make that leap. Am I keeping the door closed? Or the one I like is the people who say to instructional coaches, I'd love to have you come in my room, but I have no idea what to ask you to look for. Okay, so if that's the case, tell me to look for something, because if what you're telling me is you have no idea of where you would like to create a better outcome than what you're now getting, then you really do need somebody to help you find that out. So in this article that I found, they talked about 3 reasons that people might have that fear of finding out. One being that they won't be able to deal with the problem if they find it, or they're overwhelmed. I already got enough things to deal with. I don't want to fear one more coming up, or I just don't want to take the responsibility. That kind of hit me as one of the whole data review thing with instructional coaches. I find if you check the research, and you can look on my blog, just search under data reviews. I've posted a couple things where they have found out that coaches' time spent in data review meetings does not deliver much of a payoff for all the investment in the coach's time that it takes. And so figuring out how we approach that differently, where people want to find something because they want to find something that would assist them in moving things ahead. So I tie all this into what I've labeled as coachability. And if you're looking to increase coachability in the building, then you're creating an environment where people are comfortable with discomfort. So I sometimes I'll train coaches, your role in the building is to be sure that teachers have sufficient discomfort, and they all kind of laugh about that. Well, if there isn't discomfort, it means people aren't being conscious. So when you look at the diagram here, if you're all the way down at the bottom, when you're unconsciously unskilled, you don't have any discomfort. Now, when you make the discovery of what you're missing, that's where the discomfort comes from. Yes. So coaches can't take away teachers' discomfort, or the teacher doesn't grow. So what we've got to do instead is we've got to create an environment where teachers are comfortable having that discomfort, but because they know the discomfort is a sign of growth potential. And I find it really interesting because teachers totally get it with kids. Teachers,
yes, I was thinking that.
I need a classroom environment where kids are comfortable with discomfort.
Yes.
If you're, I worked with a math teacher, and he keeps telling the kids, if I send you to the board to do a problem and you can do it, I gave you the wrong problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I did was assess. But if you went to the problem if you went to the board and did a problem that you already knew how to do, you really didn't learn anything. So my job as a teacher is to be continually finding that next problem that raises you to that next level. That's the piece that's going to cause your growth. So now I got to create a classroom environment where we can feel good about making mistakes. I'm going to learn a language. I can't learn a language without mispronouncing words. So
Right.
I'm going to mispronounce some words. Everybody's going to laugh, and we'll laugh together because we've created that environment. And the task of the coach is to look at, what do I do to create that environment within the school? So one of the first things is you model it yourself. So I described that coaches should be the most coached people in the building. You know, if you're doing a model lesson for a teacher, you ought to be coached on it. If you're facilitating a PLC, from time to time, somebody ought to come and observe you facilitating the PLC and coach you on it. And best is have them coach you publicly in front of the people who are in the PLC, so that you can begin to get clearer and clearer that that's just a common part of that message. Mm-hmm. They describe that the way you deal with increasing coachability, the way you deal with the way you deal with that fear of finding out, is to increase your emotional intelligence. So I just pulled 3 quick things to look at. The first one is self-awareness. So if you're feeling uneasy about being coached, if you can recognize the feeling and know that it's appropriate to have it. Now, I use the example that when I would get up to give a keynote address, I feel nervous, and I know that nervousness makes me speed up, which is exactly the wrong thing to be doing. I need to be slowing down. So once I became conscious, and somebody told me, you know, the fear you feel when you step up there to give a keynote, I said, well, you should know the audience is having the same fear. They're worried to death you're going to be boring.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So if you figure out something at the beginning, like telling a joke, a funny story, letting the audience turn and talk to the person next to them for a moment, and the audience settles down, and you said that's awareness. Empathy one really hit me, and that is to have empathy for the people that you're working with as to the cost of you having the fear of finding out. So, you know, I'll raise this to teach sometime, like, by keeping your classroom door closed and not opening yourself up to colleagues and to coaching, is there a chance that there's students in your room who aren't making the progress they could be making if you opened up that door? So do you have a sense of empathy for the kids that would cause you to take that risk? And then the last one is beginning to get strategies. So one of my favorite coaching strategies related to this is called worst case scenario. So whenever a teacher is concerned about going down the path of a new strategy, changing something that they haven't done and they're a little worried about it, I always come back to, okay, what's the best case and what's the worst case scenario? Mm-hmm. You know, what's the best thing that could happen if you approach this unit through this approach? Now let's go to the worst case. And almost always in a school, that worst case scenario is pretty small once you go ahead and play it out. Mm-hmm. So the benefit, where we need to be, comes out as collective efficacy. So if you go back to everything I've laid out here as a as a foundation. It's building that collective efficacy across the school, teacher by teacher, grade level by grade level, department by department, team by team, continually growing that focus that teachers can have a belief not only in themselves, but they can have a belief in their colleagues that we can make the difference that the kids we're serving are looking for. And I'm going to close it out there, Nicole.
Oh, I absolutely love this. I'm so speechless because I am so processing all of this. I've taken notes in ways in which I can share some of this information as well across the board with coaches. I think this is it. I'm still stuck on the building of the teams and the trajectory. Like, I absolutely love that. Because I'm just a linear person, if I can see it, if I can get the vision of where we're going as a team, where we're going in my coaching, then I can get it done. So I absolutely love that.
Well, realize that all the pieces hang together.
Yes.
So coaching that individual teacher to take the risk is part of building the team.
Yep.
Having the team that's going to support new teachers coming in. It's one real interesting one I'm working on right now with the school is people's PLCs are going to be different next year. They get different people coming on and joining their teams. Some people are shifting positions. It happens to be in an international school, so some people are leaving to take a new assignment. And we're actually working on what does the team this year do to set the stage for the incoming people who are joining their school in the fall. And seeing that in effect, we're already thinking about those people and planning for the success of those people. That's an awesome team focus. And I just always come back to the bottom line, which is our kids deserve that. I appreciate every chance I have to work and learn with coaching leaders like Nicole. You'll find the link to the Atul Gawande video in the lead into this podcast, in case Nicole's idea of using it as an intro with your staff is something you'd like to do. I hope you've gained some insights listening in. If any questions have arose, you can always contact me at barkleypd.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening, folks. I'd love to hear what you're pondering. You can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn at Steve Barkley, or send me your questions and find my videos and blogs at barkleypd.com.